Okay, we are now recording slash streaming. This is the first session of the second chapter of our Rose of Westhaven campaign. 10 years have passed since the Lock Adventuring Company disappeared below the Borrington Hills in the southernmost areas of the Havenlands. Since then, the Royalist attacks on Porthcrawl continued to accelerate, eventually it being discovered that they weren't true royalists of these strange plant-infected creatures. As the town was overrun, the then Duke of York, Richard, with his lady wife Juliana, was able to use his small fleet of ships to evacuate a lot of people from the southwest coast. Using that and the wave of public support that resulted, he was able to make his claim for the throne with the support of the parliamentarians, who he had promised concessions to if they helped him regain the throne. This resulted in the previous Queen Elspeth being exiled to the Oldenwall to the west, and Duke Richard took the throne, his good lady becoming the new queen. Following that event, the southwestern coast of the Havenlands is pretty much this mess of plants and monsters that has become known as the Green Wastes. The huge chasm of the Devil's Maw continues to belch sulphurous smoke ever skywards, and strange creatures climb out of it. This has been followed by a general resurgence in pagan cults and deviant practices across the land, something that the Church of Westhaven is all too keen to stamp out. And in doing so, it has begun employing squadrons of witch hunters and monster hunters to go out and deal with these threats that are appearing. One such squadron we are going to deal with now. So I'm going to ask each of the players to introduce themselves and say a little bit about their characters. So we're going to start off with Wulfric Gallus.
Hello, I am Johannes, and I'm playing Wulfric Gallus, who is a man of slight build, medium height, raven dark hair, tied up in a ponytail most of the time with a fancy bit of string, or I guess leather, and he has this really groomed mustache. That's his sort of his object of vanity, I presume, and he has these mutton chops as well that he likes to groom, and other than that, he's dressed up in sort of like a rich burgher's or like a rich trader's outfit that's sort of faded and worn, and it has like patches on the elbows and of different colored cloth than the actual garment is. And yeah, he looks like a sort of like worn down dandy, kind of.
Okay, nice, thank you very much. We then turn to Wulfric's brother, Tiberius.
Hello, my name's Rob, and that's right, I'm playing Tiberius Gallus. Unlike Wulfric, I am most definitely the good son to the to the parents. I was seen as the more poster boy child of the Gallus family, given my grandfather's name passed down through the lines because I was seen to be fitting of it. Tiberius is a meat castle of a man. He is very, very strong, but also very pious. From a fairly early age, he was sent off to the church to study the one true God, and has come back being a holy warrior of sorts. Unfortunately, finding his brother in hard times and being put upon due to his spell casting, has thrown himself in to help Wulfric. Tiberius is, I said, very much the visage of a knightly adventurer wearing plate mail, kind of like a tattered burgundy cloak and longsword, but always wearing his fine silver holy cross around his neck.
Okay, thank you very much. And now we go on to Dane Asher.
Hello, I'm playing Dane of the House of Asher, a fallen noble house because they were on the wrong side in the Civil War. He's an older man, going into the autumn of his life. He has the very gray hair, extremely gray. He looks very haggard. He's wearing his old trusted plate armor from a time gone past. He's a sour, mean-spirited old man. He is assigned to this as well, you fucked up in the war, and this is your reward/punishment. Go forth and venture, and if you don't die, stay out there.
Okay, thank you very much. And last but by no means least, we go on to Primus Albanius Undersim.
Hello, I'm Johannes. I'm playing Primus Albanius Undersim, which is an ex-cultist from a pagan cult who was born into the cult as the first. I changed it right now because I'm the first son of the 11th son. So I was basically made into what's really rare in my cult, which is someone who's used from the cult to kill others, which only the born from 11 sons are allowed to do. And I basically learned from Tiberius when I met him in one of my missions that my cult is basically like full of shit, and I converted to his faith. And that's why I'm working with him now. And I'm still new to the normal world, why I still got into missions sometimes. I never lived for an extended period in it. That's why I am quite new to this, and I'm still trying to adjust. I'm looking like basically the most average guy you can ever imagine. I'm basic height from this time. I'm having a very plain face, having normal hair. The only thing about me is that I'm very muscular and I'm pretty good looking for a normal guy. That's basically all the normal features. The only thing which could see that I'm a cultist is that most stuff I'm wearing I made myself while I grew up, and I've got a tattoo on my neck which I burned down.
Okay, thank you very much. So we begin with this small group employed by the church heading to the small village of Otterdale. As you get nearer to the village, the ground slopes down into a gradual valley. You're following a small stream called the Little Calder that appears to feed into the lake known as the Calder Water. As you head down into this gradually sloping valley, the cold water from this river meeting up with the Calder Water and the warm air around it seems to suffuse the entire area in this thick coating of low-lying mist that hangs over the valley. Even in the middle of the day, as it is now, as you start descending into the valley, the sunlight becomes very diffuse as it's being spread about by this mist, and sound seems to be slightly muffled as you head down into this misty valley. Just up ahead of you, you can see a small village. There appear to be sticks or posts hammered into the ground around it, and on several of them you can see these lanterns, Gloombug lanterns with this soft green glowing light emanating from it. There's a sort of damp feeling from the mist in the air, and as you head down in there, your armour, your kit, etc. will quickly gain like a sheen of moisture on it. as you walk, any of you who are more inclined to the natural way of thinking, as you look around, you'll see patches almost everywhere of mushrooms, funguses, molds, etc., that seem to be thriving in the damp conditions of this valley.
I would actually go down and try to collect some of the more appealing looking mushrooms, and trying to look if I can find something which I may use for one of my special purposes.
That is absolutely fine. Okay, as you're searching around these mushrooms, you notice one which appears to have this almost like lime green colour with white spots all over it, and as you, it's quite a large sort of fleshy mushroom, and as you pick it up and you sort of give it like a gentle squeeze in your like gloved hand, a very sort of pale green fluid or water runs out of it, and there's a slightly strange sort of almost like herbal smell emanates from it.
Can I identify it?
Okay, you think that it's not strictly poisonous. You think this is a green cap mushroom. It's not dangerous. It's not deadly. However, people who sort of ingest it without it being like properly cooked and prepared, sort of it has like a hallucinogenic effect on people.
Okay. I'm looking up and I point at it. That could be useful later. I'm smiling up at Tiberius.
Useful in what manner?
Maybe we can distract someone with it.
Distract someone with a mushroom?
Is he near me when he comes back with that? Because I'll slap it out of his hand.
What? What's your problem, Dane?
Don't touch that pig and shit.
I'm fairly sure that mushrooms don't have the capability for a theological, standing.
After a little more discussion about the theological merits of various mushrooms, the group hear the sound of soft lowing or mooing in the mist, and Dane decides to investigate. Moving further in, he encounters a man attempting to herd a large group of mud cows, these strange crosses between a rhinoceros and domestic cattle, using a crooked cane. He doesn't seem to have noticed you approach. He's like facing away from you as he's like prodding these cows. Most of them just appear to be grazing on the damp grass, the mushrooms around, etc. One of them appears to have sort of wandered a little bit away from the rest of the herd. You'd say it's probably about 10 of them, and he's sort of like trying to steer it back towards the rest of the herd.
Okay. Peasant, he calls out.
He sort of turns round, looks in your direction. He's like, "Oh, hello there.
Are we near Otterdale?
Otterdale? Do you mean, sir?"
Yes.
He says, "Oh, you see them lights in the distance there? Just keep going towards it. Follow the little kelder. You can't go far wrong." So if you come up by the tooth, then you've gone too far.
The tooth.
Oh yeah, the tooth. Says it's this big rock thing. Looks a bit like sticking up out of the ground. Looks a bit like a fang. That's why we call it the tooth. You see. So if you've gone too far to the south, if you see that, but like you stick near the stream, you'll be right.
You know about any old ruins around here?
He says, "Well, we did have a fella who there's a lot of like outlying farms around here. You know, like people on the slopes of the valley and that, like grazing their cattle, etc. Like myself. We did have one fella where bit of a loner came into the village. Oh, must have been about week or two ago now, and he said he'd found something. Well, I certainly know from what I didn't see him myself, mind, but what I've heard, when he came into town, he was like splashing a load of like weird coins around and talking about the fact he were going to be rich. So I assume he found something, but I don't really know any more about it."
I look up and down at the peasant. I assume he doesn't look rich.
He definitely doesn't look rich. He's wearing sort of like fairly threadbare clothes. He's obviously like made himself. He has like a cap on. You can see most of the stuff that he's wearing has like multiple patches and repairs on. Probably due to the damp, to be honest. It wouldn't be terribly good for cloth. He certainly doesn't look wealthy.
I assume you didn't all get rich then.
He says, well, no, I certainly didn't, and he has a bit of a chuckle. He says, mind you, he says, about a week ago, we did have some outsiders come into the village. You'd obviously heard about his discovery, and, well, they splashed around a fair bit of coin, like buying food and all that, and said they were going to go and visit him up on the farm, the old Garbett farmstead, but, well, I ain't seen them since, so I don't know what happened to them.
And where's this Garbett farm?
He says, "Oh, but it's just to the south, like on the southern slope of the valley."
Far away?
Ah, it's within walking distance.
Well, what is that? Is that an hour? Is it a day?
He says, "Well, it depends on your speed of walking. If you got a brisk walk around you, it should only take you a few hours."
Okay, well, I'm sure you have. He looks at him. Sons, family.
Oh yeah, down in the village, they're actually getting ready for a bit of a celebration down there. You know, after all, with these folk coming through and like buying all this food and that and like equipment, and obviously these coins being splashed around. Well, it's more money than Otterdale's had in like years. So, well, the headsman of the village, well, old Brooks, he's throwing a bit of a celebration. You probably hear it when you get a bit closer. I think they're going to have some people like playing some music and stuff like that, you know. Bit of a festival to celebrate the good fortune, you know, lift our spirits. Whilst this is going on and Primus takes forward Dane's horse, the brothers Gallus are engaged in conversation.
I guess I just like, well, I hope the tavern missus is prettier this time than the last.
Yes, Wolfric, but I would say that tavern misses are not the thing that we should be thinking about. We should surely be thinking about the quest at hand and the saving of the country.
How does where were we again? How does doing
Otterdale.
this save the country? I mean, really, Tiberius. We
But
have mushrooms and mud cows.
yes, but a vast journey starts with very small steps.
After some discussion with the farmer, Albert Pritchard, they hear about another farmer, Ebenezer Garbett, who apparently made a discovery of some ruins near to his property on the southern slopes of the valley, and came into town quite in his cups, spreading about loads of strangely minted gold coins. Considering this, Dane orders that the farmer, Albert, must lead them to the Garbett farmstead, which he agrees to do and takes them southwards to the gently rolling slopes of the valley. In the distance, you can see what appears to be a small, isolated building. It's quite ramshackle looking, looks as though it's been built of a mixture of like scavenged stone, wood, etc. The old man's sort of like leading you towards it. You can just see it sort of looming out of the mist ahead of you. And the old man suddenly stops and he's like, "Oh, that's odd." And you see him sort of like, cocks his head and he's looking around. He says, he says, "Next to me, old Ebenezer's got one of the largest herd of mud cows in the valley. And, well, I should have heard from mine back there. Well, they do tend to make a noise when they're eating and that, but can't hear anything." And he stops and listens, and you can just hear like faint sounds coming from the village to the northwest of you as you're stood
That
on
certainly is troublesome. I suppose you should be ready for possible battle then.
The old man looks shocked when you say that. He's like, What, me, sir?"
No, unless you want to be levered in as a peasant soldier.
"Well, no, sir. I'm a simple farmer. I don't go in for any of that sort of thing."
The second Dane says it, I'll be like, "Right, you are." I'm just gonna like take my sword out.
I draw a sword which looks like a gladius.
After some discussion, Tiberius puts his well-known tracking skills to use and locates the tracks of a herd of mud cows that were apparently being led to an area near the farm. After some discussion with Dane, they decide to follow the tracks.
So yeah, he probably just grunted something and rode off.
Okay, so as you head towards this farmstead, you spot, Dane, what appears to be a mud cow lying on its side, unmoving. So between you and the farmstead, as you ride closer, you can see that this creature is obviously dead, and there appears to be a thick growth of mould and fungus over the corpse. The group quickly locate other mud cow corpses nearby, similarly overgrown with mould. Primus, taking out his knife, slices off a large piece of the mould to examine it. As you cut it off, there's like this, and this little sort of like cloud of smoke seems to come out of it and sort of like whooshes all around you.
I am able to apply poisons and shit like that. I know how to handle them, though I don't have a risk to get... I assume I know how to handle this stuff.
Indeed. You turn your face away as these spores, and you sort of hold it out as these spores puff out of this mould.
Okay. I've also got an increased resistance to poisons, but yeah. Can I identify what kind of mold this is?
It's not something you've seen before. However, given that like these tracks are fairly fresh, as Tiberius said, you would know that normally, even in damp conditions like this, it would take like a long time for animals to get such a covering of mould on the bodies. Like the process of decay appears to have been sped up somehow. Okay, as you head towards this farmhouse, it's very small. It's effectively a small stone building with like a shed on the side of it. As you get nearer, you can see the place looks to be an absolute mess. The wooden door is hanging off on the front of it. You can see there's more of this mould growing on the door, and even in between the sort of cracks and gaps of the stonework.
Can we peek inside?
Yeah, not a problem. You peek inside. Everything inside has this sort of fuzzy carpeting of mould, but you can just about make out there appears to be the remnants of some sort of animal pelt on the floor, and there's what looks to be, it might have been a bedroll, you're not sure because it's got that much mould on it at the far end of the chamber, and the chamber itself is only like about sort of 25 feet long and about sort of 15 feet wide. You can see what looks like a small wooden table or desk and maybe a stool behind it. Again, it's all covered in this mould and mushrooms sprouting all over it.
Well, I've seen enough.
I'll kind of effectively getting a torch out and be like, does this need to be cleansed? Okay.
Yes. John, would there be like a woodshed kind of thing where you collect firewoods outside? Or would
there is a shed on the side of the building that may have been used for wood or like keeping hay in or something like that.
Okay.
Nice.
If you would direct your brother and that other fellow to gather enough firewood and hay, and we'll torch this place.
Primus and Wulfric, yeah, certainly. I'll kind of go off like, Wulfric, you know a lot of things. It's true.
I don't know if I like the sound of this.
No, the inside of that building, it's coated with those mold, so much as the cows. If we're to burn this, it would destroy it, wouldn't it?
Well, inside the house, presumably, yes. But I think it's probably all over the place. And I pointed at the corpses of the mud cows. Probably we would need to torch all these bodies, possibly the field as well.
Which is pretty hard because everything is damp currently, so that would take basically the whole day. I'm not saying we shouldn't do it. I'm just pointing that out. We have other things to do too.
As you're having this discussion, there's what sounds like a loud, dull thump from inside the shed.
Tiberius, do you want to check if the master of the house is in there?
Certainly, Wolfric. I'll kind of will light my torch. So I have my torch in one hand, lit, and my sword in the other.
Okay, so you head up to the door. You look back at Dane. Dane, are you giving him the nod to go inside, or?
Yeah, I mean, if he feels up for it, Dane would nod and follow him behind with his sword and shield.
Yeah, I'll open the door and kind of stick the warm torch in first. Not obviously burning everything.
Just to see what's in there, I understand.
Yeah.
Okay, you point your torch in sort of ahead of you, and you like lean in a little bit through the door in the dim amber light that's cast by your torch. As you look around, you see that the walls in this shed are absolutely riddled with this mould, and there appear to be fibrous small white rootlets coming from the mould on the wall, heading towards what looks like a large patch of vegetation and fungus and mould in the centre of the room. As you look at this huge patch of vegetation, you can spot here and there what appears to be like a hoof sticking out of it, or like the side of like a mud cow's face, almost as though this vegetation had like absorbed these mud cows. And as you watch, the whole pile sort of undulates and makes this like noise.
I'll just take a step back out of the building
Yeah.
and just start running my torch along the top, going like, there's nothing that can be saved in there.
Okay, as you're sort of kicking the door shut and Tiberius is like running his torch along the top of it, what appears to be a large vine-like tendril or tentacle sort of lashes out from this mass of vegetation, attempting to wrap around Tiberius as he's stood sort of closest to the door. You leap back a few paces and it like slithers back through the door of the barn. Dane decides that the only solution to the vegetable creature inside the farm is to purify it with fire. Using some lamp oil from Primus and the torches of his fellows, the farmhouse is soon ablaze. The frantic thumping of the creature inside the shed grows ever more frantic, accompanied by a high-pitched screech as it is consumed by the flame. A short distance away, Wulfric is minding their mules and horses when he notices one of the deceased mud cows begin to twitch.
And I I look at the staff, the walking staff that I have like stashed on the mule next to me, and Tiberius, brother.
One moment, brother! We're burning this place!
I can quite clearly see. Also, I think one of the mud cows is about to get up, and Tiberius, get the mud cow.
As Wulfric calls for his brother, the other dead mud cows begin to rise, goaded on by the fibrous growths threaded throughout the decaying flesh. There is a sickening squelching noise as Dane knocks an arrow to his longbow and fires it into the side of one of these vegetable beasts. Primus lurks around in the shadows, concealing himself as the others prepare to do battle. Okay, no problems. So we move on to the next turn, which is the NPCs. Okay, so I'm going to do one each of the mud cows attacking Tiberius, Wulfric, and Dane. So the one attacking Tiberius. Okay, this creature charges towards you with its strangulated mooing. You sidestep to the right and it charges past you. Okay, this creature slowly starts dragging itself towards you, but it's not got to you yet. Its movements appear quite slow and uncoordinated. Wulfric, what's your AC?
What is this AC you speak of? It's 10.
Okay.
He was a regular dude in pajamas.
So one of these creatures, full ball, charges into Wulfric. However, you manage to throw yourself out of the way at the last moment and only take 1 hit point of damage.
So yeah, there's the Wilhelm scream as like Wulfric like throws himself to the ground.
I just like.
Okay, so that's what happens to the NPC's turn. We now move on to Tiberius.
Well, now seeing my brother being like launched across the world, I will try and run down the one that's attacking him. Effectively, I imagine I kind of like just see Wulfric in danger and like just flailingly run to try and get to him, but the mud cow has already charged him, knocked him skyward, and left by the time I get there, and I just kind of have a vague swing at the area where the mud cow once was.
Okay, 1 arrow in the one who fled me, and 1 arrow after the one going after our Magus.
Okay, go for it.
The one on me.
Okay, your arrow sails over it. Hey, your second arrow skims one of these emaciated, fetid mud cows, slicing off a little bit of the mould. Again, you see this of spores come off it, but it doesn't appear to have inflicted any major damage on it. Okay, we move on to Wulfric.
This is Tiberius. Any ideas? As I like climb up by like using the mule that I have to just like lift myself up from the ground.
I'd just be like, fire, brute strength, pray to God.
Fire? And I guess I get the flint and the steel and I start like lighting a torch.
Okay, that's fine. You spend your turn lighting a torch.
Yeah,
That's absolutely fine. Okay, we move on to Primus.
Okay. Since these beasts try to attack my teammates, I would try to run at them and then turn around to run again at them. The moment one of these turns around, I would jump out of one of the bonds I was hiding behind and trying to hit it in the neck.
As this creature's turning around, ready to charge Wulfric again, Primus leaps out of concealment and pretty much chops the thing in half. There's a and both Wulfric and Primus like disappear in this cloud of spores. Wulfric and Primus, can you both roll me a d6, please? Okay, you are both fine. You don't take in any of the spores. Okay, so we move on to the NPCs. Obviously, one of these creatures has been dispatched. One of the others is going to continue trying to attack Tiberius, whilst another is going to head towards Wulfric. So the one that is attacking Tiberius and the one that is attacking Wulfric. As one of these creatures lashes out with its hoof and connects with your shoulder.
how am I still alive?
Okay, so that's the NPCs. We move on to Tiberius.
Effectively, like I imagine I kind of like see him get knocked by one cow covered in this cloud of spores. I'm like, no, he's okay, and he just kind of like is continuing to try and light this torch. And I just see another as he gets like launched in it, and I'll be like, brother, and then just kind of like I will lunge and try and give that mud cow a good seeing too.
Okay, you hack at the side of this creature, but you don't really appear to cause any major damage. Okay, we move on to Dane.
By the way,
Yeah, I'm gonna shoot the infernal cow taking care of the brothers. No.
Okay, you fire a couple of arrows, neither of which finds their mark. We move on to Wulfric.
Oh boy. I guess I guess I'm gonna try to charge the mud cow. I'm gonna hit it with the burning torch.
You hit the mud cow with your burning torch. Due to the covering of mould on it, these fibrous growths, it catches fire fairly quickly. Again, there's this sort of like high-pitched screeching noise, which now you're looking at it from a closer angle. You can see that it actually appears to be caused by like a liquid inside the mould, that as it's catching fire, the liquid's sort of evaporating and letting out this hissing, steaming noise. Okay, one of the mud cows is now on fire.
Yeah, and I'm beating at it with just like this high-pitched like screaming of my own as well. Just, ah!
Okay, we go on to Primus. There are 2 mud cows remaining. One of them is on fire. Wulfric's like beating it with his torch. Like,
I would try to draw one of my axes, which looks very Celtic in nature, and I would throw it at one of the burning cow, I think.
okay. Now you hurl your axe at the mud cow. It spins end over end, and then like sinks into the floor like a couple of feet short of it. Okay, so we move on to the mud cows. Okay, so I'm going to roll for some extra damage for the one that's on fire. Okay, it's burning like tremendously well, like ridiculously well. I mean, literally, like the whole thing is now like a flame. It looks like something out of the end scene of The Wicker Man. And Wulfric, you can feel the heat coming from it. Like it's probably like crisped a few of like your beard hairs as you sort of like you're having to sort of like move back a little bit as you continue beating it, just because of the sheer heat coming towards you. It seems to be slowly sort of like collapsing, as though this like mold and these growths on it are what are allowing it to move. And as that's being burnt away, it's starting to like lose its motive ability and suddenly like collapse to the floor. However, that still leaves one of them, which is menacing Tiberius. So I'm going to make a roll for that, as it's going to attempt to charge you, Tiberius. It charges towards you. You see it coming from a mile away and just casually sidestep as it charges past you. Okay, what do you do now, Tiberius?
I'll try and do the classic kind of like I'm standing there with the sword, the mud cow's charging at me, and I'll step away at the last minute and try and do like the whole sideways hack as it's going past.
Okay, you strike a very palpable blow on the mud cow as it charges past you, hacking off a huge chunk of one of its flanks that falls to the ground in this mix of rotted flesh and these fibrous root-like growths that appear to be like embedded all throughout the muscle tissue. Again, there's this high-pitched screech as you begin slicing it up.
As I've sliced it as well, every time I kind of take a slice on it, can I hold my breath?
Yes, you most certainly can. And indeed, there is a sort of cloud of these spores, but as you say, you hold your breath. Dane, what are you doing?
He is launching 2 arrows at the rampaging cow.
Okay, your first shot goes wide, however your second hits it and you see the arrow sink into the haunch of this beast. Okay, Wulfric.
How's the mud cow doing?
The one that's sort of directly in front of you is entirely ablaze. It's still moving, but it's pretty much like collapsing into a heap as these fibrous growths that are allowing it to move are just like burning away as these flames are spreading all over it.
Okay, it doesn't like, because it's losing its legs and whatnot. So it doesn't look like it's going to go off and like run somewhere and like set the whole forest on fire.
No, it looks as though it's just like ready to collapse into a heap.
Yeah. Because I'm turning back when I realize that my mustache is burning, and I smell the burnt hair, and I turn around. There's the other cow, arrows and whatnot, and I'm just gonna throw the thing now because like there's more capable people working on this now, so I'm just gonna throw the torch at the cow.
So Dane and Tiberius, as you're trying to attend to this like other mud cow, there's a brief moment when like the two of you like part and there's a gap between you. Then you see this like as this torch like spirals between the two of you. It lands like in the open mouth of this mud cow that's been menacing the two of you. You see flames flare up and quickly spread over the beast. After a few moments has passed, you're all stood there, and there's just these two now collapsed mud cows. So as they look like small bonfires burning away. And then as the last of them is consumed, the fire slowly starts to go out.
Look at Wolfric, you're like...
And like before you get your like confusion in a verbal form, I'll just be like, well done, Tiberius. The fire worked.
Quite well struck.
Having finished off the reanimated mud cows, the heroes move around the rest of the farmhouse, pouring oil on the blaze and setting the whole place aflame. The thumping from inside the milking shed intensifies and then dies down as the whole place is consumed. As they stand there, their faces lit orange in the burning wood and mould of the farmhouse. In his gravelly voice, Dane imparts some wisdom to their recent pagan convert.
So, do you see the error of the pagan way? This is not how mud cows are supposed to behave.
The menace dealt with, Tiberius turns his attention to his injured brother Wulfric, bandaging his wounds and attempting to use smelling salts to drive out the harmful demons that are bedeviling him.
There we go. That was some good salt.
Apparently it helped.
Yep.
Praise the one God.
After some further examination of the mud cow tracks, Tiberius comes to believe that the farmer led the mud cows from the village of Otterdale up to his farmhouse, perhaps having gone there to do some trading or such like. Following the tracks, they all head towards the small village of Otterdale. Okay.
That is strange. There was some... the old man mentioned newfound riches in form of ancient coins. One would assume he meant Goman coins. There was the glimmer of gold back at the hut.
You don't think
Could we presume the coins are cursed?
That's what I was thinking. And if he's been passing them around in the village, does that possibly mean that a lot of the village may need to be cleansed?
You guys head down to the village. It's a fairly small village, about sort of a dozen buildings. They're all sort of similar small buildings made with scavenged stone, wood, etc. You can see outside a larger building, there's what appears to be a wooden table has been set out, and there's a lot of food, local produce, etc. on it. There's also a group of about 15 villagers. They all look as though they were sort of gathered around this table, perhaps for the celebration that the old farmer told you about. The group head into the village, where they see the headsman of the village, the alderman Norman Brooks, who, in the midst of setting out this village celebration, is attempting to calm his local people, telling them that he's sure the fires they have glimpsed in the distance are nothing to be concerned about. When the group approaches him, he turns around and addresses them. "Oh there, strangers. I see you're coming from the direction of old Ebenezer's farmstead. We saw the smoke. What news?"
Are you the alderman of this village?
Yes, I'm Norman Brooks, the headsman of Otterdale. And who do I have the pleasure of addressing?
I am Dane from the House of Asher. I have been sent here on a holy quest to cleanse the land. These are my retinue, and this is Tiberius, a priest of the one true God.
Oh, well, you're most welcome in Otterdale. We are good people of the faith, and he nods at you and he crosses himself. We were just about to have a small celebration in the village when we saw the smoke rising in the distance. But please come. You all look tired, hungry. If there's anything you wish to eat here, please help yourself.
He again, with great effort, gets off the horse. Again, maybe we should talk in private.
Yes, of course. And he gestures to the slightly larger stone building that the table's been set out of, and he's like, "Please, we'll just step into the hall and we can discuss this." One of the villagers says, "Mr. Brooks, should we carry on?" He says, "Yeah, he says, carry on getting ready for the festivities. After all, we've had precious little to celebrate in recent years. I'm just going to discuss with these fine gentlemen what the current situation is. I'll let you know when there's anything to be known." Handing their mounts to a local village boy to take care of, Dane and the group agree to speak with the alderman of the village, Norman Brooks, privately, and begin to make their way into his hall. On their way, Tiberius takes an opportunity to cast his eye over the produce arrayed outside. There's various meats heaped onto plates. There's what looks to be a large wheel of a very pungent smelling greyish cheese on there. Think of it as like a Stilton, but instead of like the veins being blue, they're grey, and it's like, it reeks. I mean, it smells but terrible. But that's laid out. There's like a few like loaves of bread. There's what appears to be a couple of like crates, presumably of barrels of like some sort of like liquid. You can see they've got like little like wooden taps in them that like brewers would use.
Mm-hmm. Is there anyone who looks vaguely responsible other than the Elderman as we're now walking, following him?
You can see there's a fairly sort of thickly muscled fellow who's wearing an apron. He's just actually finished like heaving one of these barrels onto the table. As he does so, he reaches out, he takes a slice of this like meat off one of the plates, and like rolls it up and like pops it in his mouth in a wanna.
I'll kind of just lean over to him on the way past and say, "You there?
Yeah.
Would you ensure that no one goes to investigate the farm until we've finished talking to your Elderman?"
Well, I don't reckon but anyone will go up to the old Garbett farmstead anyway. Old Ebenezer used to be a terror. Well, he was always causing trouble. I don't reckon anyone will be going there anyway, but if I see anyone who looks like they're about to, I'll tell them not to.
Bless you, my son.
Joining the alderman in the hall, they explain about the current situation regarding Ebenezer Garbett's farm, and that they believe the gold coins he brought into the village to be cursed and helping with the spread of what they term the devil's mould. The alderman of the village, Norman Brooks, gives them one of the gold coins that he had on his own possession, allowing them to examine it, and agrees to collect up all of the other coins as best he can, and inform the villagers not to go anywhere near Ebenezer's farm. He also says that he'll fetch his niece Laura, who is handy with herbs, to investigate whether any other villagers have fallen sick. This leads him to mention that the group may want to visit Sally Brooks, a local woman who has recently fallen a little ill, who lives on the outskirts of the town with her children.
I'll just nod and follow, and kind of look at Wolfric to make sure he's all right, because he's been suspiciously quiet.
Yeah, I've been looking at the coin that I have.
I just kind of like look at you and just like, the coin hasn't bewitched you, has it?
And I look at you as sort of like slack-jawed and empty-eyed.
I literally like reach for my holy symbol.
And I just like shake my head. Like, by God, Tiberius. And
I'm assuming it's kind of like a smirky face as well. I'm like, Wolfric, I told you, religion is not a laughing matter.
The group make their way downstream and soon see the small farmstead of Sally Brooks in the distance. There's what appears to be 5 young men outside. Most of them have fishing rods in the stream. They're sat with their feet dangling in the water. Sat there, the fishing rods. They watch as you approach. One of them goes, "Morning."
Good morning.
Would you be the Brooks kids?
One of them says, "Yeah, that's right. How are you?"
We're here to see your mother. My name is Dane of the House of Asher, and this is Tiberius, priest of the one true God. And these are our retinue.
The youngest looking of the 5 children shouts up, looking in the direction of one of the buildings, and says, "Beatrice! Alan! There's some people here to see Mum!" At which point the door opens and a young woman, probably about 13, 14, comes walking out. You see she's obviously in the middle of cleaning some pots. She's actually like wiping one down as she walks out. She looks up at you and says, "Oh, I'm very sorry. Our mother's very ill at the minute, and she can't really see anybody."
But then it's good we bought a priest, Tiberius.
"Oh, she's not that ill," she says. "She doesn't need the last rites or anything. She's just a bit poorly."
He is fully capable in the arts of healing. Now be gone.
Indeed, I would be happy to have a look at her for you.
"Oh, well, I suppose so." She looks back in through the door and then says, "Eleanor, a priest here says you might be able to help Mum out." You're another female voice from inside say, "Oh, right, okay then. I suppose you best bring him in."
Maybe you should go with him, Primus. Wulfric and I will check out the area out here.
We will be the rear guard.
Indeed.
Yeah, indeed, Primus. Come with me.
Of course, Tiberius.
So you're shown into this small farmhouse. There is smoked fish hanging from hooks around the room, a variety of fishing equipment. There's also darning tools, various leatherworking tools lying around. You see another young woman as you walk in. She's busy sewing a blanket. She looks up as you come in, and at the far end of the farmhouse you can see a number of bedrolls. They all appear to have been pushed together, and there's a very sickly looking, gaunt, pale woman lying under multiple blankets. She coughs gently as you enter.
I will approach very carefully and dutifully, and just be like, "Good morning. I don't mean to disturb you. My name is Tiberius Gallus. I am a priest of sorts. I'm here to look you over and see if there's anything I can do to help away these ills."
The young girl who's sewing, who's sat next to the ill woman, she appears to be making another blanket to put on the pile that's already over her, sort of looks up at you, and you can see the beginnings of tears lingering at the corner of her eyes as she says, "Do you really think you'll be able to do something to help Mother out? She's ever so sick. She's not been able to get out of bed for the last 3 days."
By the grace of God, I'll give it everything I have.
She almost launches herself at you and sort of grabs hold of the front of your vestments and looks up at you. You can see tears flowing down her face, and her voice quavers as though it's threatening to break, and she's like, "Oh, thank you."
I'll just kind of look a little bit kind of uncomfortable and unsure what to do, and just kind of be like, "It is fine, my child." Primus, would you like to talk to this young lady and possibly look for anything we might have seen already today?
While the rest of the group examines the very ill Sally Brooks, Wulfric is treated to a display of hospitality by Beatrix, the eldest daughter, who offers him some fungus ale and appears to have taken quite a shine to the handsome young fellow. After some discussion, they find out that Sally Brooks is extremely weak and that she fell ill a couple of weeks ago. At first, her children believed it to be a simple cold or the flu, but she's got weaker and weaker and has been unable to keep any of her food down, to the point where she has been bedridden for the last 3 days. Believing that this may portend more evil, Whilst he steers Ellen away from her ill mum, Tiberius asks Primus to remove the blanket covering Sally Brooks and investigate further, taking all precautions lest she be touched by the devil's mould. You can see that the woman's body is in very much an emaciated state, as with her face. She's very thin. She looks almost as though she's been through a great famine. There's not like an ounce of fat on her body, and as you pull back the blanket, there's this unpleasant damp sort of aroma rises up from her.
Does it smell familiar?
It smells damp and slightly rotten. You can also see she appears to have these like dark, like almost like lesions or patches all over her pale skin.
How do they look like? Can I analyze them closer?
They look like large sort of dark spots all over her skin, as though she got some form of like contagion.
I would draw one of my small stone knives and I look at Tiberius.
I'll just kind of effectively like, wait here, my child. We must look at your mother more closely.
She sort of like tries to say something, but like just nods and like.
Oh, before I'm doing that, I have this weird mushroom, right?
Indeed.
This which gives hallucination. Does it also reduce pain in some way? Because the hallucinate always.
It tends to. It's not so much that it reduces pain; it just sort of causes people not to see it as important because they're too busy tripping balls, basically.
It would actually be helpful in this way. Should I distract her from the pain?
I'll like at this stage, Primus. Let's exhaust other avenues before we head down that road.
Using one of his stone knives, Primus examines Sally Brooks and pierces one of the dark lesions on her skin. He finds that she appears to have patches of the black-grey mould growing below her skin. Further questioning reveals that Sally fell ill shortly after Ebenezer arrived at their farmstead and gave them some of the strange coins to buy fish.
Saying that, John.
Yes.
Rob knows that garlic is a natural defungal agent, and I happen to have a pound of garlic on me, but Tiberius is fairly thick.
Well, I'll tell you what you can do then. You can roll me a d20 and see if you get equal to or below your intelligence.
Come on, low. Yeah, the one thing I can do is roll low.
Okay, yeah, in which case you are aware that garlic has a number of properties, one of which is it is incredibly good as an antifungal agent.
I'll turn to the daughter and I'll effectively like, come here.
Ellen walks over to you and she's like, "Oh, well, what do you think? Can you do anything for Mother?"
Now you must be very careful. What your mother has is quite contagious and is fungal in nature. We have seen this already, and if she is to succumb to it, everything she has touched and everything that she is wearing must be burned. However, do not dismay yet. She is not passed from this world. I have a pound of garlic that I will give to you. Boil this into a thick soup and feed it to your mother. And also I would save some in some water and try and bad her down with it. I would not leave her in this pile of blankets. Lay her in front of the fire and try and keep her as dry as possible.
Whilst the Brooks children are making the garlic soup for their mother and seeing to the burning of her potentially infected bedclothes, Tiberius gathers the others around to tell them what he may have discovered and that he thinks there may be hope for those who are infected by the devil's mould.
How do you know that garlic is good against fungus? Do you feed garlic to fungus?
It's something one of the older monks explained to me. It's one of the very few facts I know. It seems to have stuck in there. A lot of musty...
Wolfric nods enthusiastically when he says, "It's one of the few facts I know." Mm-hmm. It's just like drinks his beer.
That is very good, Tiberius. We will gather some wild garlic and make sure to eat a lot of them. We need to find out where these ruins are.
At this point, Tiberius, can you please roll me a d6? Okay, thank you very much.
Out back to the farmstead. Since he discovered the ruins, they must be near the mud cows pastures and around his place.
After examining the rest of the Brooks children to ensure that none of them are infected by the mould, the youngest of the children, James, is sent into the village to secure more garlic for their mother, and the group give the children some advice that if their mother gets sicker, they must head to the village and not spend the night under the same roof. They promise to return a day later and check on her progress. Believing that Tiberius may be able to track the movement of the farmer, Ebenezer Garbett, to the ruins that he apparently found the gold coins in, they head back up to the old Garbett farmstead. It's pretty much a smouldering ruin by now.
Good.
That's how we like them. Keep the peasants down.
My favorite kind of ruin.
I would actually try to build an holy symbol out of the broken down and burned down parts of the building. So maybe a cross or whatever this looks like.
Mm-hmm. Whilst Tiberius is looking around for the tracks of Ebenezer Garbett, Dane asks Wulfric, who he believes to have a higher education, whether he knows anything about the strange ways of pagan nature gods.
And he's holding the tankard, which is full again. He's been carrying it around. Takes a sip of it. I would rather guess that if we were to ask one of the lectors at the university, all of the Goman gods would be described as odd or weird. Given that we've sort of moved past that and focused our attentions on the one true God, as it were. Presumably, as the human mind is prone to taking the shortest of shortcuts, they probably worshipped a lot of things that look like animals and plants. Those two were the ancient man's constant companions.
Just kind of like be a little bit further down. You're like, I found the tracks. Would you like to follow me now?
Following the tracks, the group head to the southern slopes of the valley, where they encounter a large chunk of grey stone, jagged and jutting from the ground. It appears someone has crudely scratched an arrow on it, pointing down, and as Tiberius, following the tracks, bends down and sweeps aside some of the underbrush, it reveals a dark and foreboding hole, seemingly burrowing down into the slope and undergrowth of the valley.
I'll kind of like clear it over. I believe this is the entrance to the ruins.
So would it appear?